Welcome to Review Recapped. Today we will be showing you a Spanish violent thriller movie, named The Platform. Spoilers ahead. Sit back and enjoy. The film begins with a scene of a gourmet meal being expertly prepared, while a voiceover states that there are three types of people: the ones above, the ones below, and the ones who fall. An elderly chef walks through a massive kitchen, approving various delicious dishes as he goes. A young man named Goring awakens in a concrete prison cell where he is greeted by an older man named Trimagasi. Trimagasi tells him that they are on level 48 and that they are in the pit. Trimagasi wonders what their food will be. When Goring asks him to elaborate, Trimagasi states that it will be whatever the ones above leave behind. Goring looks through a rectangular hole in the bottom of the cell, revealing countless identical cells below theirs. He sees the same when he looks above. When Goring asks how the pit works, Trimagasi simply tells him that they eat, and that while it is either easy or difficult to do so depending on where you've been assigned, 48 is not that bad of a level. Goring asks him how many levels are below them, and Trimagasi says there are not many, but that soon there will be less. Goring calls out to the ones below them, but Trimagasi instructs him not to, and says that the ones above won't answer either. Goring says he has been in the pit for many months, and that they will only remain at level 48 for exactly a month. A platform containing scraps of food then lowers itself through the hole in the ceiling, stopping once it reaches them. Trimagasi begins to eat hungrily. Goring refuses to eat, disgusted at the thought of having to feast on food that 94 others have already eaten, but finds a perfectly intact apple and tucks it into his pocket, intending to save it for later. After the platform descends, Goring points out that the room is growing hotter. Trimagasi says that the temperature in the room will continue to rise until they boil alive unless Goring returns the apple he stole, and that the punishment for attempting to keep any of the food is being burned or frozen to death. Goring throws the apple back, and the temperature returns to normal. Goring offers to tell Trimagasi why he is in the pit in exchange for Trimagasi's own story. He explains that he plans on quitting smoking, and that he brought a copy of Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote to read, as all inmates are allowed to choose one personal item to bring into the pit with them, leading Trimagasi to question if Goring admitted himself to the pit voluntarily. Goring reveals that he agreed to remain in the pit for 6 months in exchange for an accredited diploma. Trimagasi reveals that he is spending a year in the pit, offended at the fact that he is not receiving a degree. The next day, Trimagasi tells his own story. He purchased a Samurai Max, a highly efficient knife sharpener that he had seen in a television ad, before then seeing an ad for the Samurai Plus, a self-sharpening knife. In his frustration at having wasted his money on the Samurai Max, he threw his TV out his window, crushing and killing a man who was passing by. Trimagasi appears to show no remorse for this on account that the man was an illegal immigrant and therefore shouldn't have been there in the first place. Trimagasi then confides that he doesn't know exactly how many levels there are, but that there are definitely at least 132, having stayed on level 132 before and claiming that no food reaches such low levels. Goring doesn't believe Trimagasi could have possibly survived for a month without food, but Trimagasi claims he was still able to eat in spite of the platform containing no food. Goring wants to try to convince the ones above to ration the food, but Trimagasi says it's fruitless. Goring then tries to pass the message to those below, but Trimagasi unzips his pants and urinates on them as Goring watches in disgust. Goring shows Trimagasi his copy of Don Quixote before asking what personal item Trimagasi chose. Trimagasi reveals that he brought a Samurai Plus. Goring initially refuses to eat, but he eventually succumbs to hunger and joins Trimagasi at the table. One day, a dead body plummets down through the hole. Trimagasi explains that many people above commit suicide when they have all their needs met and have to focus solely on their situation and the things they have done to survive. Goring is shocked at Trimagasi's cavalier attitude. He accuses Trimagasi of killing and eating his prior cellmate when they were on one of the lower levels. Trimagasi denies this and says his cellmate served his term and was released. He says they survived on the lower levels by cannibalizing the corpses that fell from above. One day, a woman is seated upon the table as it descends. Trimagasi explains that this woman is named Miharu and is trying to find her young child, who is allegedly held somewhere therein. He says that she kills her cellmate every month, theorizing the body that fell may have been her cellmate's, in hopes she'll next be paired with her child. She descends on the platform as far as she can go every month in search of her child. When the table descends to level 49, the inmates there attempt to rape her. Goring yells at them to stop. Miharu kills the two men and continues her descent. After many days, Goring becomes less civil and more like Trimagasi. On their last night at level 47, Trimagasi admits he's come to like Goring, although he doesn't think Goring has what it takes to survive his stay. Trimagasi says he only has 2 more months before his time is served. When Goring awakens, he finds himself tied down to the bed with Trimagasi standing over him with his knife. They have been moved to level 171. People are screaming upon discovering where they are, and several commit suicide by jumping down the hole. Trimagasi explains that if he hadn't bound Goring, Goring eventually would have killed him out of hunger, as Goring is younger and in better shape. Trimagasi plans to fast for as long as he can, slowly mutilate Goring so they can both eat his flesh. When Goring calls Trimagasi a murderer, he says it is the ones above them that have caused this. When the platform descends, not even bones remain on the table for them to eat. After a while, Trimagasi begins carving into Goring's leg. Before Trimagasi can complete his mutilation, the platform arrives with Miharu on it. She wounds Trimagasi and frees Goring. Now freed, Goring kills Trimagasi. He and Miharu eat Trimagasi before she descends further down on the table. Goring begins to hallucinate conversations with Trimagasi, who is now part of Goring's body, and having sex with Miharu. Goring barely survives to the end of the month. Goring awakens to find a new cellmate named Imogiri who has a dog with her. They find themselves on level 33. Imogiri worked for the administration that runs the pit, and the country outside, before volunteering to be placed inside. She says that there are 200 levels and that if everyone ate only what they needed, there would be enough food to reach the bottom. The chefs also prepare the favorite foods of each inmate. Imogiri states that the administration hopes that the members of the pit spontaneously come together for the good of all. If the people in the pit can sacrifice for each other, the administration will use that success to convince the people outside to do the same. As the table descends, Imogiri asks the inmates below to only eat what they need, but they ignore her. The following weeks, Imogiri continues to plead with those on the level below to eat only what they need. They are only persuaded when Goring threatens to defecate in the food. That said, they are unable to persuade those in the levels above their own to ration their food. Imogiri believes that Goring may be the person who can bring the prisoners together to sacrifice for the common good. One day, Miharu is found deathly ill on the table. The pair treat her, but when Miharu awakens, she kills Imogiri's dog. As Miharu descends and kills another convict that tries to assault her, Imogiri says that Miharu's story is bogus. She says that Miharu voluntarily entered the pit, with no child, in exchange for help becoming the Asian Marilyn Monroe. To prove she is trustworthy, Imogiri reveals she has cancer and signed up simply to try and help those inside. Imogiri sinks into depression over the loss of their dog. After reassignment day, Goring finds himself on level 202. When he awakens, he sees that Imogiri has hung herself, likely due to learning that the administration lied to her about how deep the pit goes. There are more levels below him as well. Goring tries to eat his book. Ultimately, he succumbs to cannibalism yet again, devouring Imogiri's corpse. He now hallucinates conversations with Imogiri and Trimagasi, who are now both a part of him, and the specters proclaim that he is the Messiah. The next month we see that Goring awakens on level 6 with a man named Bharat as his new cellmate. Bharat has a rope with him and asks those above to help him climb to the top and out of the pit. The prisoners above mock him and defecate on him. Goring, who calculated that there are roughly 250 levels while he was on level 202, proposes that the two descend on the platform and hand out food at each level. He theorizes that if the food makes it to the bottom, they will have beaten the system. If they fail, they can ride the platform back up. Bharat, being a pious man, agrees to the plan and they arm themselves for battle. As the pair begin their descent, they beat the other inmates back. They reach a level with a wise man that Bharat knows. The wise man says that the pair must make sure that at least one delicious dish is sent back up the platform uneaten. That uneaten dish will serve as a message to the administration that the pit has been conquered. They choose a panna cotta, a near-perfect dish, to be returned totally uneaten. The pair are successful in forcing the prisoners to conserve the food as they descend. They reach a floor where Miharu is being stabbed by two particularly vicious inmates. Goring and Bharat attack and kill the vicious inmates, but not without suffering grievous wounds themselves. Miharu dies from the stab wounds. As they continue to descend, they mainly find people who are dead or insane on the lower levels. The platform stops at level 333, which they think is the final level. At that level, they find Miharu's child. The pair get off the platform, only to be surprised when it descends yet again. They give the panna cotta to the child and sleep. When Goring awakens the next day, he finds Bharat dead from his injuries. The platform reaches their level that day with no food. Goring pulls the child onto the platform. Goring caresses the child to sleep. The platform finally descends to the very bottom, where light from above is but a pinprick. At the bottom, Goring again encounters the spirit of Trimagasi, who says that Goring's journey is at an end. Trimagasi says that the child is the true message that must be sent back up to the administration. Although Goring wants to stay with the child, he is coaxed off the platform when Trimagasi says that the child must rise alone. In the last scene we see that the platform begins its ascent to the top as Trimagasi and Goring watch. Trimagasi assures Goring that the child will succeed in delivering the message to the administration as Goring smiles. Hope you like the movie. Help us to grow by subscribing and turning on the notifications.